We need associate engineers. We need boiler engineers. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am. Oh, sorry. What is the way forward? How we can utilize the capabilities of this youth for the future to come? We have, alhamdulillah, 220 million strong people, and we keep growing. If you allow me to be bilingual, तो हजरत ज़मीर जाफरी ने कहा था कि शौक से नूरे नज़र लखते जिगर पैदा करो, ज़ालमों गंदुम भी थोड़ी सी मगर पैदा करो. So we have to be indigenous in our own respects. So in order to utilize this youth cohort and effectively harness the country's demographic dividend, we need to locate pathways for skill development at scale. Even though the government of Pakistan has prioritized actions for youth, especially through the National Skills for All strategy, the Kamyab Jawan program that was launched in 2009 recently, young people are still finding it hard to find decent jobs. Moreover, the current macroeconomic environment is affecting the private sector as well, which is responsible for creating more than 90% of jobs in the country. I think here comes the role of small and medium enterprises. SMEDA can play a great role in this regard, but unfortunately the government is still looking for its head for the last 6 to 8 months. This panel discussion thus aims to contribute to the evidence base on the skill system of Pakistan and bring together a wide range of views from international partners like UNICEF, the government, from think tanks and different firms. So ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the chief guest that we have. We have Heritage. She's also member Parliamentary Committee for Kashmir, Human Rights, Federal Education and Skill Development. Ms. Ghazala is the founding Senior Vice President of Women Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Karachi South. She is also chairperson for Sindh Technical and Vocational Training Association. We welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Ghazala Saifi. Please join hand. So, self now, or would you like to be sharing your ideas a bit later?
I think it's okay if I do it later.
Okay. So we'll move on. Calm thought, please. My apologies if I mispronounced. Girls Education Initiative and Education in Crisis and Post-Crisis Context. And as Global Education Cluster Coordinator, Primary Education Development Program in NWFP, now KP. Her professional interests include early childhood education, out-of-school children and adolescents, improving learning, and evidence-informed and equity-based policy and planning. So may I invite Ms. Ellen Van.
Young people here, considering the topic of this morning's session. For my side, I'm very pleased to, and on behalf of UNICEF, I'm very pleased to greet also the member of the National Assembly and Parliamentary Secretary for National History and Cultural Heritage, Ms. Ghazala Saifi. We're very honored that you could come. It's impossible really to repeat all the many functions that you have and the important contributions that you are making. Also, I'm very pleased to welcome here also my fellow panel members, particularly Amina Khan from the Overseas Development Institute and Osman from VIAMO, who worked with us on the studies that are being launched today, developing skills in youth to succeed in the evolving South Asian economy. And I thank SDPI for organizing this session. And of course, we're very pleased as UNICEF that we have the opportunity to work with SDPI in this conference. So now to the topic of today. I would also like to say a few things on behalf of UNICEF. And some of these issues have already been raised by our moderator. Pakistan now has more young people than it has ever had, and this is forecast to continue to increase until at least 2050, according to the most recent 15 to 29 years. So that's an enormous group of young people who are all ready to make their own lives and to contribute to Pakistan as a nation. If we look globally, then the current generation of young people is 1/4 of the world's population, and this will be a dominant force in the decades to come. And internationally, it's recognized that a population of this magnitude presents an enormous opportunity to transform social and economic outcomes in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, that it's an opportunity to raise global productivity, reduce inequality, and address the pressing issues of today and the future, including climate change and many others, if investments are made to ensure that young people can thrive and realize their potential. And considering this scenario, this broad scenario, the question to me also was, well, why is UNICEF interested in leaving no one behind in the skills development agenda, the topic of today? And for UNICEF, considering the scenario I just outlined, we have a new focus on programs and interventions for the second decade of life. We focused a lot on young children for a long time, but we really
with question 1. And then we had KIIs with skill development service providers, both from the public and private sector, to deal with question 2. And then finally, also, we had KIIs with government representatives, bilateral and multilateral donors. And we also had a reference group done by UNICEF for this particular study. And so we interviewed members there, and it included, for example, the director of NAV-TTC from the federal government, Ministry of Education, as well as some of the key donors, so GIZ, EU, for example, as well as ILO. So we had done primary data collection, mainly the key informant interviews, in 4 locations, the federal capital as well as the provincial capital. So that's Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, and Peshawar. For various reasons, we didn't get to go to Quetta. But for future iterations, we'd also look at something of a similar effect of a study of this nature in other provinces and regions. So what we focused of aimed to do 71 key informant interviews, but we ended up with 75 because in some places we interviewed more industry associations where we had access to them, especially in the ready-made garment sector. So in each city, we were looking at 3 employers per sector, 1 small, 1 medium, 1 large, and we chose 3 sectors. I'll get to that in a second. And the definition we used are the SME definition of Pakistan. Those were employers, and then we had the skills development providers, so at least 4 per city and 2 private. But of course, given the time constraints and resource constraints we faced with, we decided to look at different sectors. So what was manageable, we're doing 3 per location. So in Karachi, the Sindh province, we looked at textile and
through various partnerships. And the challenges that we're trying to solve for our partners involve maintaining relationships with digital channels such as mobile network operators, building and maintaining flexible multi-mast telecommunication softwares, and optimizing content. I just realized that I've said just so many words over here without really explaining what it's all about. Now see, I'm sure everybody in this room has a mobile phone. I'm sure all of us have a smartphone. Does anybody have a basic phone, like a basic feature phone which does not have internet? Any show of hands? Oh, we have a few basic phones. Wow. Excellent. No, this is perfect. Now, there are about 153 million mobile phone users in Pakistan. And some of us have multiple SIMs. Yeah. I have two active SIMs, right? So we can fairly estimate the unique number of mobile phone users as 100 million in Pakistan, right? And about 15% of the overall mobile phone users are smartphone users. The remaining all are basic phone users, right? So us sitting over here in this room, most of us represent that 15%, whereas people in the rural areas or the deepest, hard to reach areas still have basic phones, right? So what VIAMO says is that let's just make these mobile phones work for all of us, right? We are using them every day to collect data. We're using to access information. We're using mobile phones every day to find out something as simple as where is my next best restaurant that I need to try, or if I'm using a mobile phone, like females in the rural areas are using it to access recipes or even religious information. So why can't we make all of this work for us to collect large sums of data, information, which is going to eventually impact or positively affect the people who provide us with that information. And VIAMO, like I said, via mobile, partners with organizations, progressive organizations such as the UNICEF, who are trying to solve these very, very burning issues, and we try to connect them with the 100 million unique mobile phone users across Pakistan. That is what we want to do, right? So as an intermediary, we connect organizations which have certain needs versus organizations which have certain reach. That is the 4 mobile network operators of Pakistan: Jazz, Ufone, Telenor, and Zong, right? So VIAMO makes that connection. So very simply, we are helping them, the organizations target the end users or the beneficiaries, understand them, inform them, and then finally measure. That is, we want to understand that if we're providing them with a key message, are they even listening to it? That is what VIAMO is all about. I think this is perhaps the only text-heavy slide that I have in my
70% लेबर ये उस्ताद शागिर्द से करती हैं. यहाँ पे मैं एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट और यूनिसेफ के लोग भी बैठे हैं. मैं I would want to talk with them that why this school dropout. School dropout. मेरी घर में काम maid is working in my house. I asked from her that what are your kids are doing. They said उसने कहा पंजाबी में कि जी मेरे बच्चे स्कूले पढ़ते से उठा लिया. मैं क्यों चुके हैं? कहते पढ़ के केड़ा नौकरियां मिलनी है. और शी वाज राइट कि कौन सा उसके बाद नौकरी मिलेगी. उसने मैंने कहा क्या कर रहे. कहते उसको मैंने कम ते पाता है, कम सीख जाएगा तो जॉब लग जाएगी. वो टीवीट एजुकेशन बेसिकली वो जो स्कूल ड्रॉप आउट हो रहे हैं वो टीवीट एजुकेशन की तरफ जा रहे हैं, इनफॉर्मल सिस्टम की तरफ. 7वीं 8वीं से उठाकर वो अपने किसी वर्कशॉप में छोड़ देते हैं. उनको पता है कि वहां से वो कमाएंगे और ये एफए और बीए करके एमए भी कर ले तो उसको जॉब नहीं मिलेगी. तो हमें देखने की एजुकेशन सिस्टम के देखने की जरूरत है कि हम मैट्रिक करवा रहे हैं, वो अनएम्प्लॉयड उसको कहीं पे स्किल पाकिस्तान में भी नहीं मिलेगी, कतर में भी नहीं मिलेगी. हमें मैट्रिक ऐसा क्रिएट करना है. हम वी आर क्रिएटिंग मैट्रिकुलेशन विद स्किल दैट कैन बी एम्प्लॉयड इन पाकिस्तान एंड आउटसाइड. भरी बज़्म में राज की बात कह दी, बड़ा बेअदब हूं, सदा चाहता हूं. अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
Educated experts or my dear children sitting at the back. Thank you for this opportunity that I can share my opinion and my life and my work with you. I'm an art student, but basically I'm self-taught. मैं जो अभी काम कर रही हूँ ये मैंने खुद सीखा है 30 साल से मैं कर रही हूँ In the late 80s, when the Afghan refugees first came to Peshawar, I started this work from my garage through curiosity and a hobby. And now 25, 30 years later, after my daughter joined me, it's taken on sort of a new scope. Okay, I want to share two things with you. The first is that this year in March, we were invited to Sharjah to give a demonstration, and also we had an order. And the Sheikha of Sharjah invited us to a place called Diba for a 1-month training to train young Emirati girls. I was very surprised when she said that some of the work had to be finished there, because in Pakistan, यहाँ बहुत कम ख़वातीन स्टोन का काम करती हैं. हम जो काम करते हैं तो उसमें हम औरतों का इस्तेमाल सिर्फ स्टेंसिल कटिंग के लिए करते हैं, डिज़ाइन के लिए, पेस्टिंग. But the real intense labor is done by young boys, Pushtun boys and Afghan refugees who have stayed back and made Peshawar their home, Pakistan. So anyway, we went, and I was surprised at how, interested those young girls were. What the Sheikha of Sharjah had done, they have an organization called IRTI, and they had invited designers and artists from all over the world to demonstrate to the women and the young girls and get them interested. Like, for example, I met a young Japanese designer who was doing basketry, and he grew his own grass. He lived in London. He was living between Tokyo and London. He grew his own grass, special grass, और उससे फिर वो टोकरियाँ बना रहा था. And then he came to show the Emirati children. But the most interesting fact was
this, who come from the very low income group to be respectable and working for the upper class in the beauty parlors. Now we need to have, here we are talking with the people who are educated, young group of people, and who need to go forward. We need to develop IT related industry for those. But those who are out of school children and those who are already in school and are in grade 7th or 8th, because every 10 years we see a product coming out which is going to be the future of our country. So we have planned accordingly as the government, and we need to inculcate skill development programs within the school curriculum, because of which the children, when they come out of school after grade maybe 10 or 12, either they go for that small limited medical college situation. We need a lot of doctors because we've had a lot of brain drain. But unfortunately, we are not actually developing the kind of doctors and engineers that are required internationally. CPAC is offering a huge opportunity to our youth. So our youth sitting here with a word of mouth and with maybe more workshops coming from our from SDPI to develop more people and understand. पहली चीज़ जो है मैं ये समझती हूँ हमें as a qawm समझने की कि we need to realize that we are one of the most versatile and most talented nation. We have to have that kind of a self-esteem, because from the grassroots level, our children and our parents will have to, even if they are rich or poor, will have to realize that we have got gold mines in our homes. Whatever, and we will have to have faith in our youth, because this youth is going to take us and has already helped us get out of the difficult economic situations that we have gone through. No matter how many IMFs we have signed, but because of this huge youth bulge, though not skilled, but we have still been able to get out of a lot of difficulties because of our youth. Now we need to train our youth, we need to put them and mobilize them and to put them in the right channel to go forward in a better futuristic environment. Yes, we all need to have smartphones. That's the need of the time, because smartphones are educational. It's not just for WhatsApp groups, it's a lot of apps that you can open up and learn about a lot of things. So all our youth should at least have one smartphone, and I go with this idea of having a smartphone with them. The other thing is कि जैसे मुकीम साहब ने कहा, बड़े दिल से और जज्बे से उन्होंने बातें की हैं, and I second a lot of things that he has said, that we need to work on Ustad Shagird situation. It's never late. जैसे आपने कहा कि ये लेट हो गया है, 70 साल पुरानी बात है, हम उसके बारे में पहले भी बात कर रहे थे और अब भी बात करेंगे. अच्छा है वो चैनलाइज हो गया, क्योंकि जब तक एक स्किल मास्टर स्किल दूसरे तक नहीं, सीना बसीना चलने वाली जो स्किल्स हैं, उनको अगर आप यूनिवर्सिटी लेवल पे लेके जाते हैं तो कितना पैसा खर्च होता है वो सिखाने के लिए उस स्किल को. वो बेहतर है कि वो स्किल अपने घर से सीख के, और साथ साथ बेसिक एजुकेशन भी हो ताकि वो उर्दू और अंग्रेज़ी बोल सके, बेसिक मैथ समझ सके, और फिर उसके बाद वो अपने आप को एक तरह से एक्सेप्टेबल बना ले सोसाइटी के अंदर. So we need to educate, we need to train, we need to provide employment to our people. Once we have that kind of a skilled development within the youth, I think the youth itself will develop and create by themselves an environment of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the solution for the future. Jobs will not be available in organizations in that numbers, the numbers that we have in population growth, will not be able to induct it. So therefore, every person, young people sitting here have got brilliant brains. They should think on developing their own enterprises. One smallest enterprise will give at least 4 to 5 people employment. So we'll have to think on those lines. We have to think in a futuristic environment. There's no harm in working on robotics and developing more PhDs, because we need that as well. But side by side, we have to develop more skilled workers so that we do not suffer internationally by sending labor force which is not certified. Certification is the key to getting more money from outside and more dignity for our labor. There are a lot of things which are already discussed, and I will not take too much of your time, but the government itself is focused on providing the best they can to our youth so that they provide us with the best future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ghazala Safi, and I'm thankful to all my panelists and
ending, moving around a circle. And for that purpose, you need to have one service administering all the streams of revenue at federation and provinces. I think we have to now get away with the IRS service or with the custom service or with the provincial service. We got to have one national revenue service with similar training and a similar mindset administering the same institution. These are two important aspects which were neglected in the past. The other proposal that although the technology has a primary work to do and is of essential importance. Without technology, I don't think in today's world anything can be done conveniently. And I'm hearing here and there that the FDR is creating apps and certain changes in technology to facilitate. But I think these are all cosmetics. You got to go for a complete and heavy investment in standard. They're not producing the goods from which the service we are requiring to deliver in the future. Their mindsets have to be changed altogether. Their curriculum has to be changed altogether. You have to teach them ethics. You have to teach them how to deal public and completely revamp the human resource. And heavy investment is required. I would propose that immediately both these institutions are merged and they are brought on the international level. Why all these revenue functions are being carried out by one stop, one shop. In any country, when you are coming from London, if you have a sales tax refund, they are paying time. I'm sure that if these things is revamped, totally integrated in a straight line, focused on the national objectives, and the systems and procedures which will be operating therein are the same and harmonized right from the FBI. You have to take the tax officer to the tax collector. Please don't bring the tax collector, the taxpayer to the tax officer. The tax office has to be taken.
First of all, there was a little friction between FBR and SRB because the Sindh Revenue Board was a new authority that was coming into existence. The Federal Board of Revenue, rightly so, wanted to hold on to its collection powers because of the harmony it had created within itself. Secondly, there was no other provincial authority that existed at that time. So the Sindh Revenue Board was fairly independent in drafting its own laws, in deciding on a certain rate of taxation, and in mainly every other aspect of legislation there was. Later on, when the Punjab Revenue Authority came into being in 2012, and then KP and Balochistan followed suit, all of them, when the Punjab Revenue Authority was being established, it had to look at FBR as well as the Sindh Revenue Board and try to protect its own share of revenue. So it created laws which protected Punjab's interests. And when KP came into being, it had then three forces to tackle. So every province separated legislation processes had created certain disharmony. But as I said, again, there is a certain people are pressing for, combining all the laws into one law. So as I said, that's not harmony. That might create a lot of noise. What we did was that the provinces started sitting together and trying to find out where the problem lay. And we realized that I can later on discuss about why I personally feel that the difference in rates of taxes is not that as big a problem as it is made out to be. I'll come to that later. One was the multiplicity of compliances. That you were answerable to 4 or 5 different authorities. A business that is any company which is in the business of goods and services across Pakistan has to be answerable to 5 different tax authorities. That was one problem. The second problem was the jurisdictional overlaps. You paid a certain amount of tax to Sindh, and you suddenly got a notice from Punjab that this was actually our tax and you owe us the same amount now. And since both the provinces earlier on were not actually talking to each other.
And then they reverted back. So there is a confusion among taxpayers. So I believe the ongoing dialogue is creating, maybe it is creating confusion and uncertain situation among the taxpayers. Thank you.
So I'll just request Engineer M.A. Jabbar to give his comments on the same.
Taxation as how we should really interpret the tax reforms in this country, you see. And I was wondering that from the viewpoint of tax collectors, that tax reforms were always meant. जी अभी आवाज आ रही है ठीक है एक मिनट ठीक है ओके मेरा ख्याल है कि let me start anew, huh? You see, for the last 25 years, I must say, in the private sector, I have been sort of involved in the taxations. I was involved with legal and arbitration affairs and was trying to understand as how the legal effect can be given to a good taxation and how a good taxation should satisfy the, I mean, say, private sector who are always claimed to be generating the economy. Now, having said so, I mean, say, in my personal view, the tax reforms in Pakistan, from the viewpoint of tax collectors, many of the seniors, I must say, I fairly remember, they would always think that tax reforms should tend towards to take a direction wherein the evasion could be minimized, wherein the sufficient tax revenue should be generated to afford the expenditure of the country, which always remain on the deficit financing side. And some of them would also argue that more taxation will also keep this order not to be in the hands of any power. You see, what we have been calling the IMF interventions, what we have been calling World Bank's too much interest, what we have been calling Chinese over interest, what we have been calling any multilateral, bilateral, plurilateral, interventions. But then on the side of taxpayers, we were always thinking that probably the tax system or tax reforms in Pakistan should be as such that there should be a balance in between the obligation, the justice for the taxpayers. Now, so tax reforms, let me say like that, in eyes of the tax collecting machinery to increase revenues, and maybe in the eyes of the taxpayers, a balance, balance between their discretions and a balance between their rights, means if they are aggrieved, they should have a reasonable, institution to
building, emerging technologies and regional stability, labor and workforce, how this fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence, they would be impacting our jobs. Are we ready for the workforce? We discussed education, economy, social protection, and then CPEC, governance and accountability, health, cybersecurity, gender, SDGs, transgender community in and digital space, human rights, how we can use this digital media and digital space to promote and to highlight human rights violations and to promote the voice for human rights protection. We also discussed how our women journalists all over the world, not only in Pakistan, but we had journalists from Germany, from Iran, from India, how they are being harassed online for their reporting. And last but not least, we had a session on food security as well. So these were some of the panels that we covered during last 3.5 days. The participation from the government treasury benches as well as from opposition benches was excellent. We had Dr. Ishrat Hussain sitting here. He was our keynote speaker on the first dinner plenary. We had Dr. Sania Nishtar, we had Dr. Asad Umar, Mr. Asad Umar, Riaz Fatehana, who is the coordinator in the parliament for SDGs. We had Honorable Sataj Aziz Saab. We had Zartaj Gul, State Minister for Climate Change, Senator Shibli Faraz, who is leader of House, Ms. Kamal Shoza, Parliamentary Secretary for Planning, Barrister Shahzad Akbar, who is looking after Interior. Then among senators, we had Ms. Aisha Raza Farooq, we had Shaista Pervez Malik MNA, we had Mr. Hassan Iqbal, we had Mr. Fawad Chaudhry, we had Fardosa Shekawan, we had Dr. Tariq Banori would be joining us today. So these were different decisions. We had head of World Bank, we had a head of ILO, we had a head of FES, and the country rep of IS. And now, without wasting much time, plenaries to celebrate the achievements of Sayyid Babar Ali Saab, parallel international conference on higher education quality assurance, which is taking place in Serena. And Tariq has to go and conclude.
Abid has said we have to rush to another meeting. But one of the things that we always think about when we think about the history of this country is to say that the true history of the country is constituted not by governments, not by parliaments, but by people who actually made this country, people who leave something that endures, who leave something which helps build up the country. Number of people who have actually contributed provided the bricks, the foundation stones, this country. There are development has really transformed the way we think about it and has brought a whole generation. I was thinking of other names that one should mention. Ghulam Farooq Saab, Aslam Adar Saab, who took over PTV when nobody knew what it was and made it into a force to be reckoned with. I mean, there are people like this that the country has produced, and these are the people that we should honor. They're the ones who have built the country. They're the ones who have created the Pakistan that we love and the Pakistan that will endure. This is the legacy that we need to build upon. And what I wanted to talk about was the fundamental role that Babar Ali Saab has played in building the country that we truly value and appreciate. Now, I will talk about the two major areas that I'm familiar with. One is Lums, of course, and the other one his major role in the environmental movement. I know others will have more to say about this, but those are the two areas that I will focus on. But before that, let me just preface my remark by providing a bit of a framework itself. The great Harvard economist Joseph Schumpeter, in his theory of economic development, was probably one of the first who introduced the critical role of the entrepreneur who is the key element in a modern capitalistic society, the one who actually creates something out of nothing. Schumpeter's idea was twofold. One is that he said, look, modern society is not something that grows linearly. He says it's a discontinuous society. At each point in time, you can see it's operating in certain principles, but you can keep on going around this, but it will not take you to the next level. Something discontinuous has to happen to take you to the next level. And that discontinuous thing that has to happen is not visible to anybody. The people to whom it is visible, for them it is obvious, but to everybody else, it's just invisible, it doesn't exist. And that person to whom it is visible, he called the entrepreneur. He gave two examples, which I'll very quickly mention. One is, the example of the transition that he meant when he talked about the discontinuity. He said, look, think about travel between one place A and place B. He says, when there's very little traffic, people may walk or they ride on horses. When there's enough, then a wagon cart comes up. And then when there's more, then maybe you have two wagon carts or three, it becomes longer and longer. And, but he says, no matter how many wagon carts you add, it doesn't become a railroad. A railroad is a discontinuous process. And it does, of course, require some external change, but it actually for literally opening up this new field of activity, which is now attracting both human and financial resources. I could go on this, since as the chairman of HEC, this is one of my responsibilities to see how it can multiply, not only in terms of people doing this, but trying to aspire to the kind of quality that Babar Ali Saab has been able to sustain at Lums. But I do want to mention the environmental side also. I know Parvez Hassan Saab is there, and he will do much more justice to it than I can. But I do want to mention the two things with which I was connected. One, of course, brings Parvez and Shoaib Saab and myself together, is SDPI itself. When we founded SDPI, we were trying to look for the good and the great to help us. And we thought, let's try to ask Babar Ali Saab. We weren't sure that he would say yes, but to our surprise that he did. So he agreed to join the Board of Governors, and when he joined, a lot of people said, well, he's very busy and he might not be able to come, but at least you have his name on your board. But lo and behold, he came to every single meeting. He came to the meeting, he was thoroughly prepared, he gave good advice, he gave every commitment that he took on it with the kind of professionalism that he represents. I must say that I learned a lot from him in terms of his participation in the board, in our Board of Governors meetings. This is the way Board of Governors are supposed to behave. The second story with which I will have to conclude is that after SDPI had been, I said, well, you know, one thing we do want to do is to help start a process of cleaning up.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We all attend seminars and events which give us knowledge, which intellectually stimulate us. But there are very few events which touch our heart and stimulate us emotionally. And even more rare are those events which touch our soul. And today is that event because we are honoring a person, a life as noble and as rich as Sayyid Babar Ali. I met Sayyid Babar Ali almost 58 years ago in 1962. I was a student at Harvard University when I saw a notification on the notice board that said Babar Ali, a well-known business leader and chairman of packages, will address Pakistani students. So I went there. It was a very stimulating talk. After the presentation, I went up to him, complimented him, and said I fully share his optimism about the future of Pakistan economy, because at that time, as some of you would have read, Ayub Khan's reform had just taken place and our growth rate had picked up to almost 6% in 61, 62 from a very low level, and therefore he was very optimistic about the future opening up. After that, he remained on my mental radar throughout the next 6 decades as an outstanding business leader, a great institution builder, a committed educationist, a philanthropist, and above all, a patriotic Pakistani. As most of you know, Sayyid Babari belongs to an exceptional family of outstanding business leaders. He therefore got ample opportunities for exploring new ideas. In 1954, when he was only 28 years old, he went to Sweden to buy packing material for Treat, a razor blade company set up by his family in Hyderabad. When he met Mr. Crawford, the chief executive, he asked him to set up a plant to manufacture packing material in Pakistan because all the new industries being set up need packing material. Sayyid Babali's Swedish friends were not only convinced by the business potential of the idea, but by the sincerity and dynamism of Sayyid Babar Ali. They readily offered plant and machinery for Packages Limited as their equity. Within 3 years, by 57 Packages was in production at a prime location in Lahore as a joint venture. Since then, as most of you are aware, it has become one of the most successful industrial institutions in the country. In the next few years, Sayyid Babar Ali concluded several other joint ventures, Tetra Pak of Sweden, Coca-Cola of USA, Nestle of Switzerland, Mitsubishi of Japan. His main guiding principle in all his business venture was their impact on the lives of the people and not just profit. As he said in one of his interviews, a real entrepreneur is one who can think beyond his own lifetime. Sayyid Babar Ali's most outstanding contribution, of course, was the Lahore University of Management Sciences, LUMS. At an early stage, he had recognized the importance of education and training when he saw that most of the job seekers which were coming to their companies for jobs were not qualified. So very early in 61, he set up the Ali Technical Institute. Then between 74 and 77, when he was managing director of the National Fertilizer Corporation, he was seriously handicapped by the paucity of good managers. Having been to Harvard Business School, he started evolving the vision and roadmap of a school on the model of the Harvard Business School in Pakistan. As a superb salesman, he soon secured promises of financial support from many other business groups, including his friends like Razak Dawood. Finally, LUM started in September 86 with 36 students in 2 rented houses in Gulbarg, Lahore. After he got a charter for LUMs from the federal government in 1987, he purchased 100 acres of land along the DHA's boundary in Lahore, and in 91, he also succeeded in getting a grant of $10 million from USAID, with which he built this very impressive and marvelous campus for LUM on that location. But Babar Ali, with his infinite capacity for new innovative ideas, carried LUMS to new heights, introducing a very elaborate program of scholarship for students from low-income groups to study at LUMS as long as they fulfilled the admission criteria. People regard LUMS as a very expensive institution, but because of its initiative, a very large proportion of students come from low-income group because of the scholarship scheme. Then combining academic program with field visits and community work to enable all graduates to learn from ground realities. This is again something not very usual in educational institution, so he added this qualitative dimension to LUMS. Then of course, much more ambitiously, from management sciences, he moved on to School of Sciences and Engineering. He realized that the complementarity, it needed a law school as well as engineering and science. But for that, the amount of spade work, which I myself observed on many occasions, inviting a very eminent group of professors from MIT and other American institutions to design the syllabus and the course, which is both up to date and relevant to our needs. So the School of Science and Engineering started in 2010, but lo and behold, they did not change the name LUMS. It was called previously Lahore University of Management Sciences. Now it became Lahore University of Management and Sciences. So that it remained LUMS, but it became University of Sciences. So again, very skillful innovation that he was able to achieve. They have achieved almost 5,500 graduates since its inception, providing qualified managers and executives, which everybody is seeking in all sectors of the economy. But as a pattern in education, in the true sense, he did not confine himself to business education. He set up the Naqsh School of Art in 2003 in the beautiful Mubarak Haveli inside the walled city of Lahore. And his basic purpose was to teach art to those aspiring students who wanted to adopt art as their profession. His other aim was to preserve and project the cultural heritage of the beautiful old city of Lahore, because if you visit the next school, you will see a magnificent display of which captures the beauty of the walled city of Lahore. So he combined two objectives in that sense. In 2010, Sayyid Babar Ali donated a large piece of land on Firozpur Road to set up the Ali Institute of Education, a degree awarding private university. Its initial purpose was, of course, to produce high-quality teachers, but has now added for other faculties, including IT and business administration. Its endless pursuit of knowledge, art and culture, Sayyid Babar Ali has published or republished some rare and outstanding works of poetry, philosophy and religion as a valuable contribution to our libraries and our cultural heritage. These are, he has been kind enough to send me, and they are so beautifully printed that I'm sure many of you would like to have access to those. The New York Times, in an article in December 2009, said, Babar Ali is not only an institution builder, but in himself an institution. Yet you will be, you will understand the full meaning of this tribute if you read Sayyid Babar Ali's biography, which is titled Learning from Others. A man of old world charms, he combines grace with humanity. His biography is a fascinating blend of the political, social, and economic history of not only Pakistan, but the subcontinent. Sayyid Babar Ali received many national and also international awards from the government of Sweden, the government of Netherlands, and Great Britain. His latest award was the Pakistan Society Award 2017, presented to him by Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, for his dedicated services to the conservation of nature. In 1996, I just mentioned, Sayyid Babar Ali succeeded Prince Philip as the 4th president of WWF, the World Wildlife Fund International. Fortunately, in 2004, I also relocated to Lahore to join the Beacon House National University. This also provided me the valuable opportunity for regular interaction with Sayyid Babar Ali to benefit from his experience in setting up and managing LUMS. Of course, I am personally grateful to him for writing such an incisive foreword to my memoirs, which were published by Oxford University Press in 2009 under the title Between Dreams and Realities, Some Milestone in Pakistan History. As I was finishing the book, I was thinking who should write this foreword. I did not go to any politicians, so many whom I knew. I went to the the most noble soul of Pakistan, which was Sayyid Babar Ali. In conclusion, of course, may I thank the Board of Directors of SCBI for conferring this Lifetime Achievement Award on someone who's truly a living legend. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sartaj Sahab. Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, she also had to join the session, but...
To Sayyid Babar Ali was through my husband, who spoke very highly of him for his architectural sensitivities and sensibilities, especially in choosing the architect for his house, and also for his interest in conservation and conservation of buildings as well as conservation of the environment, his interest in arts and his support to the art. I've not had the occasion of working for Sayyid Babar Ali, but I've had occasion of working with him. We were members of the same board. He was chairing the board in that time when we were all looking forward to regional peace and security in the SAARC region, and the Sayyid Babar Ali co-chaired the center, what was it called? SASEPS, yes, the South Asia Center for Policy Studies, and at that time one got to work with him fairly closely when we were thinking of the vision behind having something like that, a policy study group in the SAARC region to develop joint and collective policies as well as joint and collective initiatives that would bring us together as a cohesive region. And I remember that we developed the Citizen Social Charter in that time, and the Pakistan the contribution was given to me as a responsibility. But the guidance that we received from him and his colleagues was what got us into that thinking of a larger regional cooperation and collaboration. I also, my introduction to Sayyid Babar Ali in terms of environment was when I succeeded him as the regional councillor in IUCN. And it was a very difficult task, to get into try and get into those shoes that he, and his footprint that he'd left in the thinking of IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. I have another colleague sitting here who was part of IUCN at that time. Dr. Parvez Hassan was there, and later, for a short while, Dr. Tariq Banuri was also on that council. And that's when I discovered the kind of depth and also the linkages that were formed between IUCN and WWF, because they had a tense history also from time to time. But become the director of WWF, and I felt that I was just not qualified enough to take on that kind of a task. But the shafqat with which you dealt with all of us, I think, is what we remember very well, and the inspiration that you provided, especially in the way that WWF then grew and became the entity it is now. And I then had opportunity of working with that organization quite a bit, especially to bring in the gender dimension to environmental conservation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. He's Babar to a few. He's SBA to many. He's Uncle Babar to some. But he's Shah Sahab to me. So Shah Sahab, great pleasure to be here. It's really a privilege to participate in something as exciting, as momentous, and as inspirational as acknowledging for a lifetime's achievement the contribution of Shah Sahab in what we have gathered here to do. I am hugely pleased to be a part of this celebration. But I did want to say, and this is for Abid, that I don't see Mrs. Parveen Babar Ali here. I see Heather. I don't see Henna. But these are the people that really anchored the success and the glamour and the magic that is Sayyid Babar Ali. I really wanted to, for all of us to convey, from all of us to convey to Mrs. Parveen Babar Ali, to Henna, Heather is already here, our gratitude to have so well supported a man who has provided a compass, who has provided a sense of direction, and who has provided so much inspiration to all of us in Pakistan. You know, when I stand here and I want to say something nice, I know Sayyid Babar Ali, I've been on many fora like this, he gets very uncomfortable when people say nice things about him. But Shah Sahab, relax today, because we have to be very truthful today. I really wanted to sum up his life, and I was reminded of the eloquence of Adlai Stevenson. And he spoke about Eleanor Roosevelt, and I think he summed up Sayyid Babar Ali's life, that the quality of his life is such that he never curses darkness, he always lights candles. And Sayyid
left Lahore to get a job in Islamabad, so I need you to help me. I said, most willingly. So what I arranged was I would work till 5 o'clock at Punjab University, and then in the evening go to the WWF Pakistan office, which had a clerk to help us, and Packages was providing all the support in terms of telexes and whatnot. So we were given a room in Ali Industrial Technical Institute, AITI, which in 1992 became Ali Institute of Education. So I was there as honorary administrator, and it was His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, who as president of WWF International decided to visit Pakistan and India as the national organizations. So in February 1982, Prince Philip came to Pakistan. He first came to Karachi, then to Lahore, and then to Islamabad. And Dr. Pervez Hassan talked about fundraising. Sayyid Babar Ali hosted a dinner in Karachi, and WWF Pakistan for the first time raised 500,000 rupees on that occasion, because Sayyid Babar Ali asked his friends to give, he gave himself as he always does, and there was 500,000 rupees, which will be written in the annals of WWF Pakistan as the first funds which came to the organization. Then towards the end of 1982, always once a year, there is the meeting of the national organizations of WWF International. And both India and Pakistan were invited because Prince had visited here and they wanted to learn what they saw. So I
the good side of him. But I've been privileged and greatly fortunate to have known Babar Sahab for 45 years. I first met him as a teenager because my late father and Babar Sahab knew each other quite well. And courtesy of that relationship, I got to know him. And he has been a great mentor ever since. A lot has been said and a lot more will be said about his accomplishments that are public and that people are well aware of. But because of my good fortune of knowing him very closely and been blessed that the family has welcomed me in their home on innumerable occasions, I thought I'll talk more about Mr. Babar Ali, the person,
there are few people that I have known who are as affectionate and as considerate to others as he is. He's worried about the people around him. How are they doing? Are they keeping in good health? Are they doing well in life? And that is a quality which is very rare. He's gifted with an unmatched memory. He is a source of history. If we sit with him, he remembers dates, names of people, 70 years, 60 years, locations. It is absolutely fascinating to spend time with him on whatever subject you're talking about, and he has some memory of people and time which can build the context.
He saw everything, evinced keen interest. And I was a bit surprised. He was the national president of WWF. KRSP was not doing anything about wildlife, and he didn't say a word to me about it. And he went away. But he left that in my mind, that something needs to be done for wildlife. And it so happened I was visiting one of the valleys, Bar Valley, Nagar. And there, the village organization which I was meeting, they said, we want to protect our wildlife. And I immediately thought of Sayyid Babar Ali. I thought maybe this is my opportunity to do something. And I said, well, what can I, KRSP, do to protect wildlife? And they said, look, in this valley, there are 10 hunters, and they hunt ibex. And that's their livelihood, because they sell meat. So if you can find an alternative livelihood for them, then they will not do it. And I responded, look, what can a KRSP do for the hunters? I have no such position in the organization. They said, no, we can, the valley village organizations can turn these hunters into wildlife guards. If you can get us 250,000 rupees per year. So I thought I'll go to my board, and I knew that they will say, what have you done for the people that now you want money for the wildlife? So I rang up Sayyid Babar Ali, then would you give me 250,000 rupees? And he readily agreed. And I went to the village organization and I said, look, I'm going to invite the wildlife specialist from the wildlife department to count how many animals are in the valley. And again, I will call him after a year to count that have you lived up to the promise that you have made?
We've come here to honor a great man, a man that I've known for almost 50 years, and somebody who is my mentor, a friend, a guidance. He's been a very, very good guide to me. I first heard about Babar in around 1969-70. I was in Laraspur and I came over to Lahore and I met a gentleman, Irshad Hussain. Irshad Hussain was a professional in packages, and when I met him, I said to him, wow, ye kaun hoga who is employed such a very good executive as a member of his team. So after a while I spoke to him when I met him again. I says, who's where do you work? Packages. Oh, who runs packages? And he mentioned Babur's name. So that was the first time I heard it. I got transferred to Lahore, and in the early 70s, Babur moved into the fertilizer industry, so we got to meet each other. And then one day, he invites me for dinner. And like everybody else and the culture of Lahore, I turn up half an hour late. As I turn up, everybody's having their meal. So I sit down and start eating, and I ask the person next to me, "Ye kya hai? Kya itna jaldi?" He said, "You better stop talking, eat, because in the next few minutes it'll be his bedtime and we'll get our marching orders." So that was my introduction over there. And we kept on meeting each other. And then one day, Babur rang me, "Razak, are you free? Come on over." I go over and meet him. And he said, "You're teaching at the MBA department of Punjab University?" And I know about it. He says, "Is there a room for another high quality business school? Because I'm thinking, I have an idea that we should put up a business school." And I said, "Yes, it's a damn good idea." It's in a very straight way. "I'm willing to put so much money on the table. Are you willing to match it?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Okay, now we've got the money to start with. Let's get more people." And that was the beginning of LUMS. So we said, "But what would be the structure?" And then so we decided to call Parvez. "Parvez, come on over." And Parvez, myself and Babur, we sat, and Parvez gave the structure that how it should be, a fundraising foundation and the institution. And that, alhamdulillah, has been the structure that Parvez put for us right from that time. And then, in his classical way, "Chalo chalo abhi jaldi karna hai, I'll start raising the fund, let's go." The next thing I get a phone call, "Chalo ja rahe America, we've got to start looking for faculty, we've got to start looking for partners, etc." So we go to America, we go to Canada, and we end up at the University of Western Ontario in London, Canada. And we meet Dean Johnson and Joe Erskine. Fine, we talk to them, and then we come back, and Babur had already communicated with Javed Hamid. Javed Hamid is on board, and then the university begins to start in the building in Gulberg. And I can tell you honestly, it was like magic. The way the environment was there, the credit goes to Babur. A lovely environment was created, and it looked as if all of us were working, myself and Parvez and Manzoor and Altaf, and we were working with such saf niyat, as if the hand of God was coming in and everything was going well for us. And time came for interviews of the students, and Babur said, "No, Jaldi, we must interview every single student." So there we go. We're at the university, all of us sitting, and the first student comes in. A lady, Alia was her name, and Babur stands up. "Welcome, would you like tea and biscuits?" She was floored that how can she come for an interview and be offered tea and biscuits? And I looked at Babur and said, "What's this?" I said, No, we must make them feel comfortable. So that was it. As it so happened, that lady was admitted. And after she left, we all said to ourselves, oh my God, if we can get that quality of people, we are well on our way. And so we started. And then a day came when Javed Hamid had to go back to the World Bank. We're sitting there with Javed Hamid, and Javed said, no, I'm sorry, I'll have to go back to the World Bank, and you'll have to find another dean or director. By that time, Jim Erskine had come over for a few days, and I can remember it, we were walking down the stairs, and Jim Erskine was going upstairs. And as we passed him, thank you, salam, dua, everything, we went past. When we got to the bottom of the staircase, we both looked at each other. The same thing came to our mind. Why not ask Jim Erskine to replace? Back we go, and Babar, Jim, you have to join. He said, but I've got to. No, you have to join. And so Jim Erskine did join us, and it was from there onwards we went to USAID. USAID gave us the funds, and then with that funds, the main campus was built. It was a business school initially, then we moved on to humanities, etc. And then came the School of Science and Engineering. And Babar single-handedly raised all the money, and we got the School of Science and Engineering. A time came when myself and Shahid and others, Parvez, we sat down and we said, why don't we honor Babar and naming the school the Sayyid Babar Ali School of Science and Engineering. So I was given the task to go. I went to Babar, to his home. I said, Babar, the management committee has decided that we would like to name the school after you. He looked down in his full humility and says, Acha, ye karna hai? I said, yes, Babar, you have no choice. Fine. So he accepted. And then one day we were walking on campus and he said, Mera naam building ke upar mat likhna. So even to this day, although it is called the Sayyid Babar Ali School of Science and Engineering, his name is not on the building. And that is a sense of humility. After I'm gone, you can do what you want, but not during my lifetime. So Babar, we can categorically assure you, after you're gone, that name will come on with great sense of pride. What have I learned in my long association with Babar? He's a long-term player, sense of commitment, and he brings together a sense of character. And that's something that's missing in our country. We don't have enough people with a sense of character. We've heard he's a remarkable fundraiser. He is. The word that I use is he's an arm twister. And I can assure you my arm is twisted because he has been after me. All along, whenever we used to meet in the management committee, Babar would always say, we're not doing enough, we have to do more, we have to do more. And it's always the same word, more. More time to LUMS, more funds to LUMS. You know, it got to the point where I thought that when the Americans started to say to Pakistan, you have to do more, I think they got it from Babar. Babar, you have been a friend, you have been a mentor, and people say that it is not the number of years that you live, but the number of hearts you have touched. Babar is unique. Babar is unique in the sense he's already had a long life, and may you have a much longer life. And Babar, you certainly have touched my heart. Thank you.
But I do want to say that I'm greatly honored to be here today, and we feel very moved by what I've heard. I've had a long journey. I've enjoyed every bit of it. And the reason I've enjoyed it, that many of the people who have helped me along the journey are sitting here, starting from one end to the other end. Everybody has participated in this journey. Everybody has helped me. Everybody has guided me and enriched me. I've been very fortunate, and God has been very kind that, I'm 93 years old. I'm here. I can still talk and hopefully think. So very few people are that fortunate, and I'm grateful to Allah for His benevolence and His kindness. This journey has been wonderful. I've enjoyed every bit of it. I started as a private sector, then I went into the public sector. I worked in the Fertilizer Corporation as a part of Pakistan government. I was there for 4 years. I enjoyed every bit of it. And then later on, the journey that I started with Razak Dawood and Dr. Parvez Hassan in the education sector, that of course has been most rewarding. And I hope this institution will continue for hundreds of years to come to add to Pakistan's prosperity. So I will like to thank all of you, and I want to thank the audience here. They've had patience of being sitting here for more than 2 hours, listening to ill-deserved tributes to myself. People have been very generous. And I would like to end with a couplet of Sadi, who said, Kamale hamnashin dar man asar kard, wagarna man hama khakam ke hastam. My companions' virtues elevated me. I am otherwise the same humble creature. Thank you ever so much.